Cineverb.
Hello, welcome to Cineverb, a podcast discussing films in and out of the cinema. My name is Anthony Renteria, and today I'm joined by David.
Hello.
And this week we are discussing the 2022 film Barbarian, written and directed by Zach Cregger, and it stars Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgard, and Justin Long. And here's a quick synopsis. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. As always, we will begin with a spoiler-free review, and then after our ratings, we will dive into a full spoiler discussion. All right, so I actually wanted to start this review off because this was not, it was a movie I had heard about, and I think you had heard about as well. This movie seemingly has captured the horror zeitgeist and community by the throat and made a lot of money, and just like the ratings and reviews are just in the stratosphere of positivity and reactions. And I'm famously not a horror fan, so it's not going to be a surprise that I didn't necessarily love this film or like it that much, but I also didn't hate it as much as I was expecting. Even during the viewing, even the post-viewing, I was like, I kind of should hate this movie because there's a lot of things that I dislike, but then there's a lot of things like as a writer, wannabe filmmaker, there's a lot of concepts and ideas that this filmmaker, Zach Cregger, is doing that I find very interesting. I'm not sure if he did it the best way or the right way or to the fullest extent, but he is definitely doing something that is capturing the energy. And I think why everyone is so excited about this movie is not necessarily the quality of it or even the content of it, but the surprise of it. And I think that's like the element that is getting people talking is the unexpectedness. And like maybe some are saying that as a euphoric, masterful kind of element. But as a writer, like I can kind of see how he wrote this, and there is a lot of like lack. There's a lot of dead space in between the ideas and themes and concepts and the execution of it that I found kind of lacking, to where maybe the common audience goer or the common critic is not paying attention to that. They just had a fun thrill ride. But yeah, so I was going to toss it to you. What did you think? What were your initial impressions? Did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, you already I gave you my preview, but yeah, no, it does not live up to any hype that I had for the movie, and it's just one of those that I'm probably going to hate more than I thought or than I should, just because because people built it up so much, obviously,
yeah,
and because I had built it up in my head because of the overly positive reviews, especially from critics. Like it seems like more like if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, it's got like a 92% with critics and only a 71% audience score. But that doesn't make any sense to me because I feel like critics should know better. I don't know. Because I just found out today I realized that the Zach Cregger is one of the guys from the improv show, comedy show, The Whitest Kids You Know. And like I didn't know that until today. But it makes complete sense because this movie is like improv, but in all the wrong way, all the bad ways, all the cringy aspects of improv, where it's like it was so obvious to me that his main goal in this movie was just to subvert the viewer's expectations at every moment. But like he did that so much that he forgot to tell an interesting story or have like a satisfying conclusion to everything that he was setting up. So I feel like that was the reason I was so let down, because the first trailer is all I saw for this movie, and I was like, ooh, this looks like it looks brutal, and also that it's gonna have like a really interesting twist, because it can't be as simple as the trailer is making it look. Yeah. And it gave little hints, little shots that, there's something deeper here that's going to be in the movie. So yeah, it's not just going to be like a monster movie or a serial killer movie or a torture porn movie, or like it's going to be something deeper. I don't know. That's the vibe I got from the trailer. And I was very disappointed with what the movie actually did. People need to chill out. Yesterday I was reading Letterboxd, especially the Letterboxd audience apparently really loves this movie, and they need to chill, because some of these reviews are absolutely ridiculous. The things that they're praising, like even things like set design, and I'm like, it was I don't want to spoil anything, but like it's just like really simple. Like most of the movie takes place in like, it looks, this is so bad because I'm probably like making people mad that really like the movie, but it comes across as really low budget to me, like the entire movie. Even the violence and the gore, the violence and stuff comes across as a really low budget.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really give you anything. It doesn't, I don't know. It all happens in darkness, and there was nothing satisfying. So I don't know. We'll get into it more, but my headcanon of this movie was much more interesting. Like one of the guys' reviews from Letterboxd that I copied and pasted here is, he was like, if everyone was silent, everything would be dull. And I was like, that's such a ridiculous, like, I don't know. And I know you're also, you really like the theater experience as well. And I'm very like, not like, I don't care. I could watch a movie at home and have just as enjoyable experience as if I was surrounded by people. And I feel like a movie is stronger if you can enjoy it alone, and it isn't relying on you being surrounded by people who are like reacting to it and laughing and cheering and getting scared and stuff. Like, I don't know. Yeah. But I feel like the people who really love this movie are that kind of person that just really like the experience. And it seems like maybe, I don't know, I guess this year there weren't that many movies like that. So they were just thirsty for a movie like this that they could go to the theater and get all like emotional about with a group of people. So
very interesting that, like, it's interesting you saying all those things, because I feel like I've said in a similar, kind of different words, but nearly verbatim kind of explanation and opinion piece on other horror films that we've seen, like the trilogy of Netflix movies. I remember saying, like, it just feels cheap, and it's like, what's the point? So it's interesting you're having this effect with this movie, and I can't wait to get into the spoilers to like figure out exactly what about this movie triggered you in the way to where you're having my general interpretation of every horror film. But it's interesting because I think I might actually be more positive on this movie than you, just because. And then one thing I want to talk about with the theater stuff before I get into that is that I very much believe in we'll call it a theater bump, a cinema bump. When you go watch a movie, it's a packed audience and they're just riled up. There is a definite energy and funness to it. I will go back to the quote of the great Martin Scorsese, like, some films just feel like amusement park ride. And I feel like horror, especially in a packed audience, like, you have a great time. Like, I watched this with my friend Tiffany Eichelberger, shout out to her, and there was like 5 other people in our screening, a bunch of teenagers, and like, I actually had a good time, and like all the jump scares, none of that played on me because there were so many people and everyone was like pre-screaming or like it was just so much noise around me and so much like, I want to go home. Like, it was almost like, it almost felt fake, but I guess that's just teenagers nowadays. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this movie does get under people's skin in a way that maybe me and you are just not into or something.
I don't know.
But yeah, I do think that there's definitely a theater bump that is attributing to a lot of this. I remember like Quiet Place Part 1 had that for me. Like, that was a huge theater experience, and it probably would have been different at home. But yeah, and I also agree that a film should stand on its own in a solo screening. That's actually how I watch most of my movies, is alone, even in the theaters. Like, I'll specifically pick out a showtime with like no one in it and go watch the movie that way. Not to throw any comparisons because they're not similar, but like Parasite, like, I remember that was a movie that was hugely hyped for the reveals and shocks and surprises, and I saw that alone and it still hit me like a ton of bricks. But I do know, like, a lot of people saw that at film festivals and stuff like that, and I can only imagine what that audience like. And I think all these critics, like, it's actually kind of smart. Like, I guarantee, like, this movie studio set up all these critics to go to a screening, let the movie go. And, even if you're the most hardened critic and everyone beside you is laughing or screaming or gasping, like, that's going to kind of bleed into your opinion. And that's why I think a lot of these, I imagine that has to be an element. Like, whatever this original critic screening was, must have been a riotous good time, which, I mean, we should be invited. So if anyone listening is in charge of that, I'm totally down to go get drunk and watch a movie and rave about it. But yeah, and then the other thing, I guess the other parts we'll have to get into the spoilers about the actual narrative and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to say some pros that I felt from this movie here in the review section before we wrap up. I do like most of the performances, specifically Justin Long. We're going to talk about him a lot in the spoilers, I imagine, but like, his performance was pretty spectacular, and I had a great time like seeing him. And I can't, like, he's so familiar, I can't remember where he's from. Like, is he from a TV show or something? Or
he's in so many things. I think it was just, he was one of the, like, back in the early 2000s, he was in just a bunch of movies.
Always a supporting character.
Mostly like comedies or comedy horrors. Like, I feel like that's what he's mainly was in. So I understand why they chose him, because he does that. When I see him in the movie, I think, oh, this is like a throwback to like kind of early 2000s weird. Well, and it does make sense now that I've seen this movie, because it is that kind of tone. It's silly. Like, it's a silly movie. I think that's what you got to go in. Like, like, this is a silly movie. It's not
Yeah.
it's not a brutal horror movie or anything like that, and it's not particularly like smart or interesting. It's really silly. That's the main word that I keep thinking about. So it makes sense that he's in it, but he actually gives like you said, a really good performance to where I'm like, yeah, I would like to see him in more movies because he's actually a pretty good actor, and he's good at mixing like comedy with kind of horrible stuff. I could see him playing a really good, just someone who's he just plays a really good someone who's just a horrible person, but is kind of likable. So yeah.
Yeah. And then I liked Bill Skarsgård as well. Like, I think this is the first time I've seen him in a movie. Like, actually, because I never saw the It movies or whatever other stuff he's been in.
Oh, you never did?
So I liked him in this. He has an interesting face that is Jack Nicholson-esque. Like, you just immediately think of him as a villain. And then I liked the lead actress, Georgina Campbell, as well. I think she was an interesting presence. I do think they're all kind of, well, besides Justin Long, I think he has the strongest character and was given the most to play with. But the other characters and actors in this, like, I feel like there is a writing problem that we'll get into. Like you're saying, the tone is kind of all over the place and not in a very confident way. The visuals, we'll dig into this more, but like the cinematography, like there was times where it was like pretty stunning and like shockingly good. But then other times it's like, oh, this is just the most basic shot ever. And it really was throwing me for a loop. And I was like, okay, this is like your average TV show kind of director where it's like you have these big set pieces that are filmed gloriously and then everything in between is just two medium shots cutting back. And that kind of bothers me. It's like I would rather have a plain movie all the way through or like be Fincher-esque and like run with it the whole time, you know, like cement a style. And this one doesn't really pick or choose either or. But I guess, is there any other technical things you want to bring up, pros or cons, and then your rating?
Well, pros, well, we'll talk about, yeah, I guess nothing else that's non-spoiler, except speaking of like the cinematography, like I can't believe that people are I can't believe the movies that people are comparing this to, like to Sam Raimi. Like this is like, yeah, people are comparing this to Sam Raimi movies, and I'm like, this has nowhere near. Please do not, if you're listening to this, you haven't seen the movie yet, do not go in expecting a Sam Raimi movie. Like a single scene from any Sam Raimi horror movie has so like thousands of times more energy than this entire movie. You can't even compare them. And yeah, like the cinematography, like the artistry of the wacky cinematography and stuff that Sam Raimi is famous for. So yeah, this is no comparison. Even though there is one sequence in this movie that has really striking cinematography, but that's it. And it doesn't serve anything. It's the most pointless sequence of the movie. It almost makes me think they had to do that aesthetic because they thought, oh, like this part of the movie is going to be boring if we don't give it this fancy aesthetic, because it doesn't have any consequence really to the movie. So
yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, and there's not like Sam Raimi is like a consistent voice. And like I kind of said this earlier, but yeah, that's the thing that bothers me too, is like it like pulls me out of the movie. And this movie is a movie that pulls you out of it multiple times that we'll get into in the spoilers. And when it's not, it doesn't feel confident, or it doesn't feel like it knows where it's going either, which again, we'll dig into the spoilers. But what would you rate this out of 10?
Oh man, it was hard because I was like, well, I was looking at movies that people were comparing this to. Like people compared it to *Malignant*, which came out last year, which I'm surprised to learn a lot of people really love that movie.
You didn't like it?
I thought it was infamous because it was so bad, but apparently a lot of people really like it. And I gave that a 4 out of 10 because it did have style, but it was still a really bad movie. And then people are comparing it to Don't Breathe, which from what I remember, that movie has a lot of words people are using for this movie are like, oh, it was so nasty, it was so brutal, it was so gross and like stuff. And I'm like, nothing in this movie, anything but Don't Breathe. I remember that movie. I remember the scenes that are really gross in that movie and shocking. And I didn't get anything like that from this movie. So, and I gave that a 6 out of 10. So I'm giving this one a 5 out of 10. It's just middle of the road. Like it's a movie that you just turn your brain off and you go see and just let it take you wherever it's going to take you. But it's not particularly good. Its style in some scenes kind of weighs evenly to me with the stuff that really doesn't work well. That's super awkward. So it just kind of balances out to a 5 out of 10. But
that is interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people love *Malignant*, and I know I don't get that's something I heard about, and I was going to ask you about that movie, but I wonder if these. Yeah, I'll have to watch it and see the similarities at some point. My rating is going to be a. what is it going to be? What is it going to be? So right after the screening, it was like a 2 out of 10. And then I thought about it, and I thought about like, all right, if I was a writer, this is obviously an indie director. I'm trying to be nicer with how I criticize movies, just in case I ever talk or run into these people in the future. And I was thinking, like there is a lot of cool ideas, but then a lot of the cool ideas feel kind of pointless, like you're talking about. And I think thematically, and this is like my general problem with a lot of horror films, is like, what's the theme? And this movie has like 20 different themes, and this guy's just like throwing it all against the wall, and that kind of bothers me a lot. But there are some themes that I do like, and there's some ideas that I do like. So I think I'm gonna end at 5 out of 10 as well. I think I'm gonna be, this is like average.
I'm amending my it's not, it doesn't have to do with your rating, but as you were talking, I realized, the thing that actually really bothers me about it is that brings up a lot of stuff, but then it doesn't deliver. And so it's even more annoying and pointless. Or like it hints that, oh, you're going to learn, this is going to show you something more interesting about the plot, or like, oh, and then it doesn't. So no, it's a 4 out of 10. I'm moving it down. I'm bumping it down just because you made me remember the ending and how disappointing the ending was compared to what I thought. So no, it's a 4 out of 10.
Okay, so we're gonna dig into that. Yeah, I'm gonna stick at a 5. So that is gonna conclude our review. Oh, well, one final thing. I guess, is there anyone you would actually recommend this to? Like, is there, like, I guess if people like *Malignant*, I mean, I guess everyone loves it, so you're probably the majority.
Don't really have to recommend it to anyone. I just, it's a dumb movie. You don't have to think about that. It's just a Halloween movie. It's one of those movies that honestly, it's like on par with like those movies that come out every year around October, that you're the only draw to it is you go to the theater and you watch it in a crowded theater, and people scream and laugh, and that's it. I mean, and then you forget about it a year later. Like, that's it.
One thing it reminds me of, I haven't really read this much from like creepypasta and like horror story Reddit forum board. I don't know if you've ever dived into those, but it's like these people who like write a narrative on a Reddit board, and it'll be 1,000 words or something. It'll be really short, and it's very succinct, and it's not really great. But I guess a lot of these people love it because they read it in the middle of the night when they can't go to sleep or whatever, and it's just like this movie feels like it was written on a Reddit board, like in that kind of way. And I think maybe that's why people like it. Like, it feels like like a very modern, like if a TikToker were to write a movie, I think it would be this movie. Like, it's interesting, and then when you think about it, it's like, oh, this is not very interesting.
Right.
But yeah, we'll dig into that here in a second. So that's going to conclude our review portion of Barbarian. If you don't want to be spoiled, which, trust us, you don't want to be spoiled. This whole movie's a spoiler. You can pause the podcast now, and while you do that, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, or comment on what you thought about the film or our takes on it. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or email us at cineverm@yahoo.com. You can visit our website, cineverm.com, for our canon list and written reviews. You can check out my YouTube channels, A Lonely Critic, where I do solo reviews, A Lonely Gamer, where I do gameplays, and my other podcast, Headset Chat, for video game news, and Redrink Talk for my book club podcast. So if you want to read along with me, you can do that. And yeah, so like, let's get into the spoilers. I don't even know where to start, man. This whole I brought up the Parasite thing, so hopefully people don't think about that too much. But this honestly kind of felt like he watched Parasite and was like, let me do the American version. And I'm like, yeah, this makes sense.
I feel like there's a lot of influence, like even Tarantino. I also thought about that. Because obviously, like, telling a story with a bunch of chapters that are disconnected in time, and then they all come together at the end.
I was shocked we did not get a title card. That was like, whatever Justin Long's character is, like the fall of a TV. Like, I was expecting that level of things. Because honestly, it would have probably made it better. Title cards. But yeah, that smash cut to Justin Long, I was like, are we in a Tarantino movie now? But like, it doesn't feel as confident and as slick as Tarantino. Or I guess the thing I feel from Tarantino is his ego. This kind of felt like non-ego, and maybe like it kind of made it negative because it was like the movie was constantly acting like it knew what we wanted and what we were thinking, and it was like doing that. I guess to like begin the spoilers, so we can kind of go in chronological order because there's so much in here. I think we might jump around if we just jump around. But the beginning with the Airbnb thing, we have these two characters, the female and the male, booked in the same Airbnb. It's a mistake, blah, 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 all these elements. And the way the dialogue's written, the way it's performed, all that stuff feels like I know what an audience would want from this. Like, there's like people who are like, if I were to write a horror movie, my character would be smart. And this is like the real life version of that kind of movie. And now I know why it doesn't really work. Because, like, I don't know, something about that in this movie made it not work because you have to have a character that fucks up to have a movie, unless you're a good enough writer to where you can write them into situations where they don't seem dumb. But this writer, made smart characters and then made them do something dumb. So what was the point of having all this smart stuff for noting on, you think I'm probably going to rape you, and like all this kind of stuff. So I guess, like, to begin with, what do you think about the whole Airbnb situation, circumstance, performances, all that stuff? And did you have an issue with it?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I thought the acting was really awkward. I don't know if it's just me, but I thought both of them were really overacting, and it made me feel uncomfortable to where I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was how it was shot or something. It could have used a little more improv, honestly. Could have used more, just stop saying lines and just like improv to each other about like what you would do if you were really in the situation. I don't know. But so it made me feel kind of uncomfortable, their performances, but not in an unintentional way. But then also about the like smart character being dumb. Yeah, like it establishes that with her like showing close-ups of her whenever she locks a door, and it's like, ooh, look at her. She's remembering to lock the door every time she goes in the bathroom or whatever. And then so it's setting it up, and I was really excited because I was like, okay, is it actually going to do that? Is it going to follow through, like that she does everything right? Because that would be actually horrifying, is if she really did everything right, but there was no way there. The way it's set up is there's no way that she could escape. But yeah, they don't do that. And they could have, I was just trying to think of ways to fix it, but I was thinking like they could have just done, I know would be, maybe it's too predictable for this director, but they could have just done where, because I thought it did it kind of well, to where she at first was very cautious of him, and over the course of the evening and drinking wine together, he got her really comfortable, and they made a big deal out of the shot or whatever. We noticed that she doesn't lock the door when she goes in her bedroom. And I thought, okay, this is all pretty believable up to this point. Like, she's kind of tipsy, wine, like she's talked to him for hours and she thinks she knows him. And yeah, like it kind of makes sense that would be her mistake. She just doesn't lock the door. And I was expecting that. I was expecting, okay, this is when things are going to go bad, but then they don't use that and they move it along. And it's just like, oh, that didn't work, what they do after that. So they could have just been a little bit more predictable, and that would have been fine, because it would have still been scary, because she did seem like she was a smart character and she took every precaution, but she just slipped up, in one moment. Yeah. And that would have been actually scary. But instead, she ends up, there's many moments where she does stupid things. And then that leads to her downfall. So it's just, they dropped the ball with that. But that trying to establish a smart character.
You have to. That you bring up so many elements that I like think about, and I imagine you think about too as a writer. It's like you obviously want your characters to be believable. So I understand the idea of like making her seem so smart and like having all these precautions, because that is like the reality of a lot of women, and I'm imagining this scenario. But I also imagine 99% of women would have walked the other way and just been like, I'm just gonna go get a hotel. Like there is no way every hotel in this city, you could just go outside the city. That's when it becomes a problem, when you are trying to logic and then your movie has little logic holes. And that's where you have to be an extremely good writer. Like like if I was the writer, she finds a hotel, she goes outside, and then her car battery's dead. That is a freak accident. And then I think that's how you can kind of, squeeze characters in. Or like she locks the door, but it doesn't lock. Like the locking mechanism's fucked up, and I think that is warranted in horror, because it's like, some Final Destination level shit, like it was fate. And then we're kind of, there's the other thing that's actually, now that I just said that, this movie doesn't explain why all the doors are opening and closing automatically.
I was like, is that a draft, or is it implying that the woman is coming
the woman
up?
downstairs.
Yeah, like is she because the hobo later does say, which is, this is another thing they should not have put in the movie. The hobo says that she comes up, she roams the streets at night. So I mean, it could have been her, but then why wouldn't she have eaten those people immediately? I don't know. But I think it was just supposed to be like the house is drafty and the doors are just moving on their own, I guess. Oh my God. Brought up a thing like, she's in this rough neighborhood, her tire could have been slashed or something. And she like goes out after she books a hotel, she goes out to her car and her like tires are slashed or something, and she's forced to stay. like that would have been believable, how they set it up. So
And that's something. I mean, I think this is going to come out before our drive episode, but that's something like I forgot to mention in our drive episodes. Like the reason I love that movie and I love the character and I love the whole deck of cards falling through is because the character in that movie, Ryan Gosling's character, he doesn't want to do any of these things, and he is smart and he's doing everything he can to prevent anything from happening. And like it's just other characters and other events that are dragging him down. It's like
yeah,
that. It's like the typical like Coen brothers kind of thing. Like the Big
yeah,
Lebowski. Like you're just thrown into a situation. And I think this movie needed that element because you have a smart character, but then they're the ones causing these issues. And then like the weird like, and then there's like the fake out things that I hate in horror. Like I hate fake outs because it's just dumb. Like because then I end up thinking, why do a fake out and not have something substantial that adds to the themes or ideas? So like, she forgets to lock the door. She comes out. Skarsgard is like having a nightmare or whatever. Wakes him up. There's just like conversations. Like if your door's open and he says, "I didn't open your door," like you as another human being would be like, "You did open my door because it was closed." Because
yeah.
neither of y'all believe in ghosts. And there's no way it would open by itself. So, like,
Unlock.
I think that would have elevated, and that should have elevated. And it would have been cool to have a huge argument or something. And then maybe, because this is what I was thinking was going to happen. They were going to start arguing and screaming at each other. And then we would hear, like, a huge knock downstairs. And then they would both go and investigate. But the way this movie plays was just so confusing because I thought it was going to be like, all right, we're going to set up first night, everything goes crazy and they cannot escape. But then instead, we cut to the daytime and she has this interview and she's going to get this job. I mean, which is all cool backstory, but I don't think it adds anything to the central horror theme. And I think you could have done that with her being trapped and her talking about it while she's trapped. Like we talked about Fresh and how she kind of talks about her life
Oh,
while
I was
she's
just
trapped.
thinking that. Yes.
Yeah. And like, I think that is a good way to do this. Like keep us in the action. And if you want to develop story, do it while our characters are in distress instead of what we get here. And then, like she has an interview and we don't go back to it. Like, what did you think about all that extra stuff that, I don't know, did it bother you as much as it bothered me?
Well, man, because you brought up Fresh now, because I was thinking earlier, like, man, talk about a movie that does this so much better, like the build up and the dread and then the believability of her of the character getting herself into peril. So done so much better in Fresh. I know you didn't like that movie, but the build up at the beginning, I believed it. Didn't believe it in this movie. But yeah, like the whole interview thing does kind of break the horror. Yeah, because she leaves and it's daytime and she goes down to downtown Detroit and it's like, what was the point of that whole interview? And then later in the movie, it just made me think, wouldn't that lady call the cops maybe if she didn't hear? But I guess it's just I guess it was just an interview and maybe she didn't get hired for the job. And so that's why the lady never called her to follow up. But I mean, the lady did seem very concerned about the side of town she was staying on. So you'd think maybe she would think that. Maybe she would call to check up on her, but no, that wasn't for anything really. It didn't really establish anything except to have that moment where another character says, "Ooh, you shouldn't be staying in that part of town. That's haunted," or what. That moment's in a bunch of horror movies. Where someone can tell the main character about the dangers, but they don't listen to them. I don't know. That's all that was for.
I do agree about the Fresh thing because that movie had smart characters. Multiple smart characters, and the movie consistently left them smart. Like, I mean, you remember there was like a whole part of that movie, I guess light spoilers for like 10 seconds, where other characters start investigating what happened to the character. And that is a huge point of that narrative to where they all collapse together. And like this movie set up the same elements and then ditched them. And like set up smart characters and then made them do something stupid. And and even like when we cut today and she's driving through the neighborhood and like there's literally not a single house that is occupied. Like I get the whole like, and this is like one of the themes, I guess, of a town or a city that's, been ravaged by poverty or what have you. And then but I just do not believe for a second that this pretty little rental would be smack dab in the middle of like a ghost town. Like that is literally impossible. I literally do not think any person would stay there when there's literally no home around that is occupied.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, there might be places like that in Detroit because, I know there's those people that are trying to revive it, but the main thing is that it's not believable that she would not go on Google Maps before she went there and plopped
And
herself
know
down
that.
in front of that address and looked around and been like, nope, like she did with the basement door at first. But yeah, she would not stay there. It doesn't make any sense. She could stay, like you said, like 30 minutes outside of the city in a hotel on the highway and then drive into town for the interview. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't give her any reason, except for, I guess, the documentary that she's going to be a part of is about reviving Detroit, I guess. So maybe that is why she's motivated to stay in that place. But
Yeah.
you'd think she would have taken more precautions if she was planning on doing that, like telling a friend where she was staying and when she was going to be leaving and all that stuff, just like they do in Fresh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really
Yeah.
smart, It's like, yeah. And then also, before I forget, since we're talking about the beginning of the movie, like, was there any purpose in her having a guy, I don't remember the name, on the phone calling her over and over again and her rejecting the calls? Was that just supposed to be like, oh, we're supposed to think maybe he's going to do something? What was the point of that?
I want to say it sets up the idea that she just got out of a bad breakup and that's why she's like immediately hot for Bill Skarsgård, because this is another scene that I was like, this makes zero sense. She's waiting for her interview. She pulls out her phone and zooms into a picture of his driver license and then gives like the most I don't know what the word is, but it's like not bad acting, because obviously the director told her to do this, but it's like just obvious and cheesy kind of reaction where she's like smiling, like, oh, he's so cute. And I'm like, no, like his driver license photo looked disgusting. Like he looks like a monster. So there's no way. I don't know. It's just weird. And then she's like immediately like game to be with this guy, which I mean could be believable, but I don't know. It's just weird to have that in pre-interview. Like that's what she's going to look at before her interview to get set up and ready for this big job.
Yeah, that's true. But also, yeah, I mean, isn't there a moment, and I feel bad because I think I zoned out for like 2 seconds and they were talking and I caught the end of it, that they were talking about her relationship and something about being in a bad relationship. But I thought, man, they should have really gone into that a little bit more and drawn that out more, because I missed it. I wasn't paying attention for like 5 seconds and I missed whatever context they were trying to put in with her getting out of a bad relationship, because later I think that could have made more sense of her certain decisions, like her going down into the basement to rescue him and stuff. It would have made sense. Maybe honestly, it should have played it up that maybe her boyfriend was oh god, what do you call that personality type where whatever, she's always taking care of him and rescuing him. She's codependent. And she had to always take care of him and rescue him from situations and stuff, but she's trying to get out of it, but then she gets into this situation. That would have been a cool backstory or tie-in for why she was so insistent on like being the hero and going down there and rescuing her. When I was just thinking, am I a psychopath? Because even at the point where he goes in the basement and I'm not hearing from him anymore, I'm just leaving the house and calling the police. Like I know it tried to set that up to where, oh, she called the police once and they didn't respond and we don't have any units or whatever. But
that makes no sense. Oh my god. Yeah, see, this is where like you start adding logic. It's like you're playing Russian roulette with yourself in a movie, because like you're just constantly shooting blanks, and at some point you're gonna have a logic hole and then blow your head off. And that's what this movie does. Like that whole, like, now that you bring that up, like I totally forgot that, but she goes down, she gets out, and then like she doesn't immediately call the cops, which that would have been the perfect opportunity, because you have the key, you're in the house. When the cops get there, you can open the door, walk them in, go downstairs, see there's a basement dwelling, see a bed covered with blood and feces or whatever the hell, and a camera. That is obviously a crime scene. And then like my friend and co-renter is down there and he's screaming. Problem solved. And that would have been cool. Like I would have done that and then had the cops killed or something, I don't know. But it's just like weird, that whole setup and scene. Like, and I didn't buy the whole him being like, well, can you just wait for me while I go down there and double check and verify? It's like, no.
Yeah, that didn't make any sense. Yeah, I didn't buy that she should not leave at that moment for sure. He's a grown man. That's his decision to go down there, but that doesn't mean you got to stay and wait for him.
Exactly. Yeah. And then the whole idea of him going further and further down, like that broke my logic brain as well. Like, why would he keep running the opposite way and then screaming? And then when you arrive to him, he's like, shh, be quiet. Be quiet. It's like, dude, you were screaming. It's like, what the
And the only reason that all of that is like that is because it's trying to fake us out and make us think that he's luring her down there. But yeah,
Yeah.
once you realize that that's not going on, a lot of his actions and lines don't make any sense. Like on
Yeah.
rewatch, like I'm sure if I rewatch this, the first part, it would be super awkward and confusing because you're like, this is just a normal dude. Like I saw someone in an interview say, like, yeah, like Keith was just a weird dude, and that's it. But it just doesn't make any sense of some of the things that he does and says. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, him not understanding the line that he says, like, oh, I don't get it. Like, it's just a room with a bed and a bucket in it. Like that's nothing to get
Come
freaked
on.
out. And
Like
it's like, and a camera, like everyone has that mental image in their head. Like there's a reason that they could just show us that room and we
and
as the
yeah.
audience know that that's super messed up and creepy. So the fact
Yep.
that he wouldn't get that doesn't make any sense. It totally breaks reality where you're like,
Yep.
this guy is either an idiot or he is the bad guy, which is trying to make us think that oh,
Yeah.
he's the bad guy. And that all
Yeah.
would make sense if he was the bad guy. But no, they have to subvert that and
Yeah.
ruin all of it.
And it makes no sense with how violently, safe and proactive his character is in the beginning, to the point to where he makes it even more awkward by trying not to be awkward and be safe. Like, you want to watch me open this wine? You want to watch me make the tea? You want to, like, he is very, like, the way he's doing it is awkward and weird. But he is like
Yeah.
his, like, you can immediately tell, like, this guy is trying to do the right thing. He's just a guy. So like there's no way around it, and then he's verbalizing it all in hopes that it eases it. And then and then he has this whole part like we're talking about where all that falls apart. Like there's no humanly way anyone hears that and thinks that's okay in a rental of all places. And god, yeah, like that it bothers me. And then like what I would have done would have two things be true. I would have had him go down there, fake that he tripped or fell or whatever, got bit, and then him grab her and him, maybe try to rape her. And then
Oh
have
my
the
God, yeah.
mother monster. And that would have tied in with the entire,
Yes.
I guess the only theme of the movie is this like male, female, like motherhood kind of element. That would have tied directly in with it. And then we could have had, the movie could have had its fake out, and we could have had our real moment of the character actually being a rapist, gross fuck, and the
Yes.
monster killing the man. So, because the other thing I found confusing is like, why did she immediately bash his head in? Because, they kind of set up that she just wants little baby people or grown
Yep.
baby people to take care of, which she does with the other toxic male, but then immediately bashes Bill Skarsgård head
It
in.
was
And then
just for the scene. Just for the scene. That's it.
exact.
That's
And
it.
this is the other hole that the movie establishes. It throws it in your face where like if you freak out, it'll kill you. So just don't freak out. In that scene, Bill Skarsgård is whispering, and then he just gets his head bashed in, and then she's the one screaming, and she doesn't get her head bashed. And like this is like I don't know. I just hate
Yeah.
horror movies that set up a rule. Like they just don't set up a rule. Just don't say that she'll kill you if you freak out. Like we don't need to hear that. Like that is just kind of obvious
Yeah.
or whatever. But when you kind of set it up as a rule, like whatever, like even in Nope, like if you look at it, it'll kill you. But then we have
Yeah.
multiple instances of something not looking at it and it kills it. Like just stop. Just don't do it. Like it's just dumb. It's just so dumb. You just want it because it's a cool line, because it sounds cool in a theater. Like ooh, when you're in a scary situation, if you freak out, that's gonna kill you. I don't know. That whole part
Yeah, it's just a
bothered me.
horror cliche. Yeah. Oh,
Which is so
man.
weird because this movie is like obsessed with like breaking cliches, but then it falls into its own cliches over and over again. I mean, I guess one final thing we should talk about here in this beginning portion is, she goes to the basement, she accidentally locks herself in, which was cool, and then she's doing all these smart things to like try to figure her like puzzle. It was almost like an escape room, like she was trying to escape room herself out of this area, and then she pulls a cord, it opens a door, and then she doesn't want to go in there. She says no, classic line, sits on the stairs, and I'm like, okay, what is the writer going to do now? Like I'm thinking as a writer, like how do I get her down there without her seeming dumb? Because that's what we just had a 5-minute sequence of showing she's not dumb in this basement.
Yeah.
She moves the mirror to see down there, and I'm like, okay, that's cool, so you can see if something's running out. But then she goes down there. And I'm like, why did we have 5 minutes and like a whole scene of her saying nope for her just to go down there? And then again, like the Bill Skarsgård thing we already touched on, like he goes down, she goes down, and I'm just screaming at her. And I'm like, what is the point of having a character that's quote unquote smart do the typical dumb horror thing, which is go down a dark hallway?
She didn't even take her phone when the first time she went down. Like that's and they made a thing out of that. But it's
Yeah.
like her character, even the dumb actor,
Yeah, he
Justin
was
Long
smart.
character, even he took his phone down there when he went. So I'm
Yeah.
like, she wouldn't have left her
Here's
phone on the dresser upstairs and gone down into the creepy basement, first of all. But
yeah. When she is this safe, she in the beginning night, she has her phone with her at all times, and she's always pulling it up, looking stuff up, whatever. And then the other element that pissed me off is like, why is she not grabbing something? Like she is so smart to do all these puzzle things that I would have never thought to do. But she isn't smart enough to like grab something that's blunt or sharp or anything in your hand. And like
yeah,
and then the Justin Long character has his phone, has a flashlight, and then grabs a knife.
yeah.
And I'm like, what? Like you, the writer, know this now, and you didn't do it with the smartest character in the film. And now I'm just like, I don't get what he's trying to do with this main character. Like it was just boggling my mind. Like it almost feels like this was like a first draft, and he was like, oh, this is cool because it's all random and unexpected. And
hmm
oh my god. But yeah. Anyways, Skarsgard's dead. Head. I guess. What did you think about the actual head kill shot? Like, did you like how it was smashed into
I
the
liked
rocks?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a cool. You could see his head like disappearing like very rapidly, which didn't really, it was just a style. It was very like Tarantino. Like every
Yeah.
shot, every new time it gets hit into it's somehow getting your head hit against a wall. All your flesh just falls off of your head. But that
Yeah.
was the cool. Honestly, that was the coolest gore
Kill.
in
Yeah.
the movie. And then there's nothing really after that that's like or interesting at all. And so it was another thing about this movie is that it's an R-rated movie that just completely doesn't do anything with
Yeah.
the R rating. There's so much more you could have done with the
Yeah.
violence for a movie that's called Barbarian. I was
What we
expecting way more. I don't know. I was expecting a lot more just because of the title of the movie. And it just
Yeah.
did not deliver at all. There's no excuse. It's with an R rating, like we know how much there's so many other movies you could compare it to of how much they could have gotten away with, but
Yeah, and I don't like the title because it makes no sense. And even like I listened to an interview with the director, and he's like, "Oh, that's just what I wrote on the document, and it sounded good, and it was cool." And then like someone asked them at a Q&A, it's like, "Oh, you chose it to be Barbarian because I forgot the address, but it was like 363 or 636 or 367 or whatever the address was." Someone was like, that was actually the year that the barbarians invaded this place or whatever. And
oh
that's
my
why
god.
he named it Barbarian. And I was like, see, this proves that so many horror fans will just like, what is it? Confirmation bias things into intelligence. So at least this director said no. It was just, he just randomly, before he even wrote the thing, he just had it called Barbarian. And yeah, like
Okay.
that. I guess the other thing, this is we smash cut out from Busted Head to Justin Long, and this is where the film sets up another, I guess, theme, or I guess it's kind of relevant, the toxic male theme or whatever. We have Justin Long riding down, listening to a song, having a great time. It looks fun. I was like, all right, I can watch this movie. Like if this is just gonna be him, I can watch this. And then he's accused of raping a co-star of a TV show or someone involved in the production, and then we get like 15, 20 minutes of this whole like Me Too kind of narrative of Justin Long's character being accused of this crime. And then we are just increasingly realizing through his actions and then events around him and situations he keeps putting himself in that he is absolutely guilty of this evil crime. And then he is just like constantly like, it wasn't me and it's not my fault. He even like calls her and apologizes when he gets drunk one night. There's an amazing sequence, an amazing bar sequence that I wanted to ask you about because it made me laugh like out loud just how stupid but then also realistic it is. Like I've seen dudes talk like that. What did you think about his whole sub story and plot?
Yeah, well, first the cut, to sunny California. I really liked it. At that moment watching the movie, I had really high hopes. My hopes were so high because I was like, okay, this is doing something interesting. The cut is unexpected. I love when movies, throw something at you like that, like completely seemingly unrelated, and then you have to slowly figure out how it's related to the plot. I really like that. Like it's fun as a viewer. But then the Me Too stuff starts coming in, and I'm like, okay, in order for this to be satisfying, they're going to have to really tie it into the horror element of this movie. And also, just something else too is because they already showed us the monster, like it was very clear. And in hindsight, it's kind of the most intense scene of the movie with the monster. It's the scariest. Like they're going to have to add more. Like it's going to have to be more than just this creepy mutant woman in the basement. Like there's going to have to be something else, or else this is going to be really not satisfying to show us that and then like do nothing else with it. And they didn't. They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything complex or anything. Like at this point in the movie, my head was going crazy. I was like, okay, like is Justin Long like he's like a struggling actor, and because this is going to hurt his career, he's going to have to like make some weird business deal with some creepy business that's connected to his rental properties, and then it's going to be connected to some kind of like underground group, maybe of like rich people that are exploiting people staying at these rentals and are kidnapping them and then like torturing them for fun or money, or like brainwashing them, or something really depraved and like twisted, something to do with like money and like how disconnected these people like actors are and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But it didn't do any of that. It didn't do anything. It was literally just a mutant in the basement and a serial killer, and that's it. That's all they did with it. And I was just, my brain was just coming up with all these different complex plots. And I think honestly, it was all based on the shot in the first trailer that shows the video very briefly of the woman breastfeeding, but it doesn't show a woman breastfeeding. It just shows, I don't know, it shows like a little TV and a video. You see a woman's face and you hear like the kind of creepy instructional voiceover. And that just, that for some reason, just that detail made my brain imagine all this really complex stuff with like some kind of group of sadists that are kidnapping people through Airbnbs and taking them underground and then brainwashing them or something. But it didn't do anything.
Dude, that would be fucking awesome.
Something more like Us, you know, like Jordan Peele, like something more complex, like something is going on underneath the surface and no one's paying attention to it. I don't know.
Or also like Parasite. Like that's the theme I was thinking, because you have, again, there's just way too many fucking themes in this movie, and I don't think the movie says anything of value or important or adds anything to any of the themes, like whether it's the toxic masculinity, whether it's the Me Too or the rape or the just douchey actor person, or safety in Airbnbs or the faults of Airbnbs, or smart people in horror films because then they do dumb things. Even the womanhood, femininity aspects fall apart. Like we'll get to that. and then like the other thing it kind of tackles is like race and policing and like, I guess, you know, impoverished communities and disenfranchised peoples, and like all those things are elements of this. And then like the whole underground thing, to bring it back around to the Parasite thing I mentioned, you know, like that movie has one central theme, which is the wealthy and the poor and the divide. And then it's visualized through an underground and upper ground house. Us does the same thing. There's an upper ground world and an underground world. And like that is literally and metaphorically and visually poverty. And like, I imagine like this movie's kind of doing that, but well, it like kind of hints at it, you know, with the top being this, you know, destroyed town that everyone's fled because of whatever circumstances of Detroit. And then, the underground, you know, you think it'd be referencing that, but then it doesn't, because it's just a normal dumb monster thing. And even the dumb monster thing is, oh my God. So I guess, I don't know. It's breaking my brain because I don't even know which theme to unravel, because they all self-unravel. But I guess honestly, my brain is fried.
I mean, to me, the most interesting theme that they could have stuck with is just like this is about the past and how it still affects us and how things are carried down because of how big of a deal they make of the 80s, and him getting in his car and turning on the radio and it's like the Reagan administration has inherited all the blah blah blah, like again, so it makes a big deal out of that. And I'm like, man, that would have been a cool, and it's about obviously this him having babies with the women that he kidnaps and them having babies and that being passed down and resulting in this mutant who is killing people in the present moment. And I was like, this theme they could have done it much deeper to where it's about how the past and maybe like specifically the 80s and that kind of culture has affected us and has been passed down, and we inherited the fucked up, you know, consequences of that time period. And that would have been so cool to explore that in a horror way. They don't do anything deep with that.
The shadow of that. And I think this is like the one tying thing, but I don't even think the film is aware or trying to do this, but the tying element for me of the past is we have this toxic male on the hunt, preying on women, raping women, kidnapping women, and then the mutant lady is actually a offspring of incest, of multiple incests, which also falls apart just on logic, because women have to be at a certain age to bear children, and this is in the 80s, so that'd be 10, 20, 30. Like, there's no way you would reach the point of having this large mutant woman within that time span, especially with what we know of, you know, incest offspring they're actually weaker. They actually
yeah.
have, just a host of medical and health issues. So like, I don't know, but I mean, that's just horror, whatever, semantics. But the thing that bothered me about that sequence, so okay, so we smash cut. Actually, I want to finish off the Justin Long thing before we go to that part. So I just want to say the thing I love the most about Justin Long is his character is a piece of shit and he's consistent. Again, like the main actress, her character was not written consistently with her intelligence. And then Bill Skarsgård, I guess, yeah, he wasn't written consistently with his like bro kind of like wannabe safe smart guy, whatever stuff. But then Justin Long comes in and he is remarkably consistent the whole film. That's the only character that remained entirely consistent throughout the whole film, which I enjoyed and I loved because he does a great performance. Even the final part of this movie, which is just inherently stupid, it still makes sense with his character. But the thing I want to talk about before we get to the flashback stuff is, you know, he is the owner of this Airbnb, kind of like an element you were thinking about, but it doesn't go into a more interesting plane. And he just owns this Airbnb and he has like a management company that rents it out. They don't give a fuck, which is another like, this doesn't make any sense and it hasn't been rented in months, but that doesn't make any sense. But anyways, the part I love the most, and this like actually had me laughing out loud, was he goes downstairs and I love the parallel and the like refraction of how one character sees this situation and how another character sees a situation. Like it's a beautiful like filmmaking technique of perception. And I think that was very interesting and a very cool idea. And I think under the hands of a better filmmaker, that could be such a huge and awesome film element. Like have multiple characters see the same area and have completely different responses, because his response is immediately goes back to his laptop and Googles, you know, can underground space basement be added to square footage to raise his home equity and valuation? And it does. So then he continues with this measuring tape like a complete doofus, just measuring everything, floor to ceiling, the width, the length, just everything. And I just thought it was so funny, and it keeps going all the way to the point to where, like, I don't know, I just bought it because his character is just insanely stupid. Like he's literally claiming that he's going to win a court case when he literally raped someone. Like, I don't know how someone in their mind, you know, is accused of rape and then is on the other hand saying, well, like she said no, but then it was okay. Like, how would, like, you would not at least fear, like, wait, I could actually lose this thing? Like, that just cemented how idiotic he was. And then this measuring tape thing was like just a funny commentary on, yeah, truly, he lacks brain cells and he's just measuring the creepiest, scariest looking tunnel with like human cages with blood and all kinds of grossness. And I just loved how that whole scene was played out. And then the reveal of the lady with the measuring tape like swiveling back and coming out of his hands, just all of it. And then even the girl actress running into the measuring tape later, like, it was honestly nice. The most exciting prop of this movie. And it was like, for some reason, the director really cared about the measuring tape, and it really showed. And it was my favorite part. I mean, the film should have been called Measuring Tape.
Oh yeah. Well, also, it makes me think like that if the whole movie had been silly like that, then it would have made sense.
Yeah.
But now I'm trying to think, the only parts of the movie that don't really fit in with that, I guess, is having the serial killer flashback and like all that, because there's nothing silly or funny about that.
I hated that part.
So it's kind of like if you took that or made that silly somehow in the same way that his character's silly, and maybe played up the silliness of the first sequence a little bit. I don't know, like it could have been a funny horror comedy, but there's just too many parts of it that are too dark.
Or have characters that are more unique. Like that was the thing about Justin Long. Like he was a unique character. Like he felt like, I cannot imagine someone being like this. But then, you know, we've all heard these horror stories of actual rapists just walking around thinking they're innocent. And you are portraying that with this idiotic character, and it's like there's like I forgot what the word is, but there's like a theory. It's like, not a theory, but there's like a saying, like if you're trying to write a great novel or breakout film or whatever, or even coming up with a cool innovation or invention, there's like an area of believability, and you have to go one step over believability, and that is how like people will accept one step over believability. Like I'm trying to think of a scientific thing it could apply to, like you know, if I were to tell you I can put a microchip in your head and you can browse the internet, you'd be like, I don't know if that's possible. But then I could be like, well, I can put glasses on you and you can browse the internet, then you'd be like, yeah, I can kind of see we're getting close to that. That's a one step towards
Yeah.
believability. And I think that character does that. Like, he is like so insanely stupid, but he's still in the realm of, okay, I can buy this, and it plays well. And I wish all the other characters had unique factors. Like, make Bill Skarsgård just a little more weird or a little more awkward, and then make the actress. I mean, I don't think she should have been as smart as she was. So maybe she should have been a little dumber, or just way too smart, or like way too cautious. And I think that would have made her intriguing. And like, I've never seen this type of person in a movie, but I can imagine this person kind of existing. And I think that that's a flaw of the movie. But I guess to get into the flashback, because we smash out from Justin Long being captured to this flashback scene, which this is like one of the scenes. There was another scene with Justin Long that I actually want to note on. There's like a first person kind of like almost like a video game where we see his hands and he's like holding the flashlight out to the tunnel, and it lasted like 3 seconds, and I was like, ooh, maybe the rest of the sequence, or him running away and getting captured, is going to play in first person. And I thought that would have been phenomenal and genius and awesome. Because like if he would have fell and if he was being dragged, the camera would have been dragging on the ground. And I think that would have been Sam Raimi. Like when I think of Sam Raimi, I think of he's going to do something with the camera that I would never do, because I would think it looks stupid. Like in all honesty, it's like you're doing things with the camera that you probably shouldn't do. But Sam Raimi does it, and then it feels right. It's like an interesting energy. And that sequence, for 5 seconds, it felt that. And I wish he would have like had the confidence or ego or courage to just like commit. Like as soon as he hears the monster, we're in first person, and that's it. And then cut to black, being dragged or whatever, cut to black, and then smash cut out to this flashback. And that would have kept with the trend. But, we smash cut to this flashback, and it's just completely dumb. The main character is obviously a serial killer. Like, just the way he walks, he doesn't say anything. And then stalking this woman, and then, like, we don't even see the fruition of it.
Yeah, so
like, what was the point?
Like, so pointless. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that's just that was so annoying that they set it all up. I liked how it was subtle at first, kind of setting it up, and he gets in his car and he glances over, and I kind of was like, oh, that's just random. He's just backing up, and then the camera. I mean, the cinematography was doing interesting things. Like, it kind of swivels to a sideward where it's looking through both of the windows, sideways at him. And then there's a like really nice match cut to him and sitting next to the woman's house that he's followed. And then we see him, which is very creepy. Like, and this is based on, real cases where they act like whatever handyman, they go in the house, they don't do anything then. They just lock the windows or unlock a window. And then come back later. And like that all is real and very creepy and subtle. And then we don't get to see it though. It just doesn't, God, we don't get to see it. We don't see anything. We hear another woman screaming in his basement, and that's it. And it's like, wow, that whole sequence had no payoff.
And it's like, I don't think we had to see her die, but I think it would have been cool to at least see him entering the house at night, or see him like actually grabbing her and have a scream, and then smash cut back. And like I was just so confused. Like, what did he just write it like this? And if he wrote it like that, then that's like just a huge glaring problem, because like that whole backstory doesn't really matter, because we don't nothing. And like, I feel like you could cut that whole sequence and it wouldn't change the film, because they exposition dump all of it. They say like he watches the video with him raping and killing women and impregnating them. What's her face says that she has babies and she takes care of babies and all this kind of stuff. Like, it's all said, so nothing in that sequence did anything. And then even the part where like there's the neighbor and he's like, oh, I'm gonna be moving out and all this stuff, and it's hinting or nodding towards, I guess, some the administrations or the government or politics or housing and all that kind of stuff. And then again, like, there's no point to it. It's
just wasted. That's where I started feeling like this movie, because I knew it was kind of short. Like, it's only an hour and a half. Like, it's not 2 hours or anything. But it felt like it was wasting so much time and just stretching out the time.
But I will say, I do, you commented on the awesome match cut, the awesome side view in the car. I also want to say, like, the perspective and camera when we were following him from behind was very, very much like Grand Theft Auto-esque. Like, it
Hmm.
just felt like, you're in a video game again. This guy obviously plays a lot of video games. Like, I can guarantee that. And I do like how it blows up to like a widescreen format, because I think all the film outside of this flashback is in a different ratio, or at least it
Yeah.
felt like that in my mind. And it
No, it
felt like
definitely
a
did.
huge. Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it
I
changes
didn't.
to like the 4:3 aspects when it's the 80s scene.
And then again, like, it's just so weird how in this sequence, it's just like, whoa, this is like a legit fucking, like, this guy, is grabbing the visuals by the throat. And then we cut back to other parts of the films where it's like, oh, this is just a normal movie again. And I'm just so confused. Why? Like, was it a restriction of time or money or
Mm.
craft or experience? I don't know. But anyways, we go back to the underground with Justin Long. He's trying to be fed by this mutant woman creature who just wants to nurse him. He doesn't take it. I think what happens here? He grabs her out, and then she tries to nurse him with her actual boob, which also doesn't make sense. Like, how can she possibly be lactating for this long?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, how's she producing milk? What is she eating? What is her food? What's her diet? Is she just
Yeah.
eating people? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
And yeah, and this allows the other actress to escape, which she does. And oh my god, this whole sequence is just so mind-numbingly dumb. So she escapes, and then what happens? She runs it. She calls the cops. Cops come back. They don't do anything. She goes back into the house by breaking a window. What does she do? She grabs her car keys, and then the monster runs outside in broad daylight, right?
No, she goes. Oh wait, what does happen? Oh my
Yeah,
god, I forgot.
I think
Because
she gets back in her car, because then the monster comes out, and then she drives into the monster, pinning it to the house, and then she thinks, "Oh,
yeah.
now is my opportunity to save Justin Long." And then we are cutting back to Justin Long's character, who is running the
Oh wait.
opposite way.
I kind of remember how it happened. It's because it turns to night again. It's like she runs out of time with the cops, and then she goes back to the house, and she decides to leave. Right? I mean, she kind of grabs her keys, gets in her car, and it looks like she's gonna leave. But then that's when, for some reason, the monster comes out of the house and is just standing in front of the house. And she rams it with her car. But that was a little weird. Like, that's the only time that the monster comes out of the house. Like, I don't
which
know.
made which made zero sense. And then yeah, she pins it to the house, which again makes zero sense. Like, if its spine would have been broken, like,
Oh, yeah.
there's just no way. Like, if you're pinned
It,
to a
it,
house.
it definitely had superhero. It started to get really annoying because I'm like, this thing is just a superhero. This is Superman. Doesn't make any sense. It would
Yeah.
have died multiple times. Yeah.
And then again, like, I
Ugh.
would have reversed and repinned it. Like, I don't know. I don't see a reality where you would leave something pinned, because even when you put a car in park, it has like a little bit of dead space where it, loosens back up.
Well, I think in fairness, they showed her trying to back up and the car like wasn't moving or like wasn't
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
making
Okay.
making some kind of sound like it wasn't going to move anymore. So that's why she had to get out.
Okay, okay. But then yeah, she goes downstairs, and then in I think intercut with this whole sequence, we are seeing Justin Long find the room with the old character that I guess we saw in the flashback. Which again, like, what was the point of this? Finds videotapes. Ugh, the guy pulls out a gun in an overlong sequence of trying to drink water. I don't know. It was so dumb to me. This whole sequence was so
Yeah.
dumb. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, okay, this old guy's gonna shoot Justin Long, or I expected Justin Long to either get shot at and then like brutally kill this guy. And maybe this could have been a hint towards the Barbarian, like, in a bad situation, a human will kill another human for survival or something. I don't know. But then
Hmm.
the old guy, for no reason, kills himself. And I'm like,
Well,
this is just dumb.
okay, I've become the apologist, but like I think the reason he did that was because Justin Long was ranting about how this place is going to be swarming with cops and like this is the end. I'm going to get out of here, and the cop, whatever. I think it's just like he just realized like, oh shit, this is the end. Like, because I think he was really shocked that a person made it to his place and into his room. Because so I guess he was just thinking like, okay, something happened to my inbred granddaughter, and she's not killing people anymore or something. So this guy is just going to bring the cops and I'm going to kill myself. But it was a little, he jumped the gun literally because it's kind of like, why could he have just waited until he heard the cops coming? Yeah. I guess he was
God, yeah.
dying too. I don't know.
It just, I don't know. I didn't feel that from his performance of the old guy actor. Like, he's literally not
Yeah.
changing emotionally or physically or reactions. I don't know. It
Yeah.
was just so dumb. And I think it was the least suspenseful version of that sequence. Like, anything else would have been more suspenseful. But, anyways, Justin Long gets the gun, is running down the tunnel towards the other direction, trying to get out. We have the female running towards him. And this is like, obviously, but I like this element. I was like, okay, obviously they're gonna run into each other, and Justin Long is gonna freak out and shoot her on accident, and that is what happens. And I guess I wanted to ask you, what did you think about that moment? Like, did you like that? Was it a
Well,
surprise or a
yeah,
shock?
I was actually surprised. I wasn't thinking about it for some reason, and I was actually surprised by that, and I kind of liked it. But I thought, well, the way this director is she just gonna die here? I mean, that'd be really
That's what I would have done.
whatever. Like, yeah, like he literally just killed her accidentally. I guess that's too cliche, but I don't know. This is like a small detail, but I really love the gunshot sounds in this movie because they're actually realistic. They're just a pop. Like it was a really cool, like a realistic sound of a gun going off, just a pop.
Yeah.
And I just thought that whoever was in charge of that did a good job because they made it actually realistic. It wasn't over the top like a bang, and it made it scarier for some reason every time the gun went off because it actually sounded real.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just weird because she gets shot in like the stomach area, and I don't know. It's just I wish she would have either died or she just wouldn't have got shot. I don't know. It was just weird because then it's like, I don't know, like gunshots. I don't know. I don't really know that much about gunshots to where like she would have died from that hit, but I'm pretty sure they would have been
that
like,
combined
this
with
was...
her falling off the water tower. Yeah, like she would have died of like internal injuries. Yeah, doesn't make sense.
Oh God. It's just, yeah. But in Parasite, like there's a sequence that's similar and it feels more engaging and more climactic. Where this one, it feels like just abrupt and dumb because there is no actual permanent damage to her. Like, yeah, she kind of limps, but like she's not prevented from doing anything in any other sequence, I feel like. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it was just dumb. And then I think that would have kind of tied in with the element of evil men. Like this woman who has been, and this also just makes no sense with her character. So this is why I think I would like it, because it would make me angry at this character and at the film, which I think would have been a positive. Like, we set up for like 15, 20 minutes that she is going to come back and save Justin Long because why would anyone want to save him? Even not knowing what he's done, I would, like, even if it was you, David, I'm sorry, I would not go back down there with a 8-foot tall woman. Like, I just wouldn't. Like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do that would help that I couldn't have done before?
Exactly.
And that just driving me crazy that she was so persistent on saving him, which I think would have been a cool element if she would have died. Because like, I imagine how pissed I would have been. Like, wow, this guy just fucking killed her, and like she literally risked her whole life to come down here, and that would have tied in perfectly with the whole element of him being a rapist and raping women, and now he's a murderer of women. And I guess they tried to do it later in the film.
They tried and did a way more over the top version of that. Yeah.
And again, deflated it. But anyways, just to speed up a little bit, this all happens. She's still alive. They drag each other out. They go back out. It's dark now. They run into this guy. There was a whole other sequence where this like seemingly homeless character is like, "Don't get in that house." And we see him again.
Yeah. No, but the first time he appears is so stupid because it's like he just comes out of nowhere. He's just just obviously screaming. he is coming across like a crazy person. If he really wanted to help, he would have just quietly approached and then knocked on the door and told her. But it doesn't make any sense. Just meant there to be a fake out, and it's stupid.
Oh my God.
And then my God, his death. Yeah, his death.
So dumb.
So
you want to set that up?
Yeah, like he's like, "Oh yeah, come on in here," and he's got like his little like compound, it looks like, and they sit down. He has time to tell them about the whole backstory, like you said, and then whatever, everything's fine, and then they're like, Are you sure she can't get in here? And he's like, "Oh yeah, of course. I've been here for 15 years and she's never come in here." And then she immediately bursts through the wall like the Kool-Aid man and just brutally murders him, even though, like you said, they've already established that she only kills people that are being aggressive, but that doesn't matter anymore. And she just brutally kills him and they have to run away. And Oh, and they don't run to the hole that she's burst through. They run to a different part the compound where they have to like climb over the fence or whatever. I don't even remember how they get out, but they make a big deal out of that. So
And then
stupid.
climb up a water tower, which is a
Yeah,
one-way trip.
Right. When obviously this monster can climb, there's no like restriction that says that it can't climb up with you. It doesn't even have to climb the water tower. It just comes up the steps. Like I don't. Doesn't
Like a
make any
normal human
sense.
being.
Yep. And then then you have the over the top, which I did. That's where I didn't believe that character would do that. Like I really didn't believe that he in that moment would have thought to push her over to save himself. I know what they're trying to do, but it doesn't equate with, oh my God, does this make me sound horrible? But like it does not equate with the story that he tells his friend about the rape, like how he sees it in his mind. Like how could he talk it's totally different. Like this is like in the moment, he is immediately just, I'm going to kill this person to save myself.
Yeah.
I don't know. Totally different circumstance that doesn't equate. And I'm like, I don't buy that he would do that. He probably just would have been so scared he wouldn't have think to do anything. And then he does it. And then
which makes
there's
no sense because there's no guarantee it would jump
Yeah.
off to save her.
Yes. I didn't get that. Why would it? Like, yeah, he doesn't know that, right? He doesn't assume that she's a nice monster that likes her babies. Like, he just thinks of her as a monster. And so then also the really silly shot of the monster jumping off like a cartoon.
God, like an Olympic diver.
Yeah, just really, really silly looking. That breaks you out of any kind of tension or horror. And then the physics of it just not making any sense because the girl jumps off several seconds before and the monster somehow ends up underneath her as a nice little cushion for her. And then despite that, the monster is still completely unharmed, alive and well, jumps up and has enough strength to crush Justin Long's head. Just doesn't, there's no consequences. It doesn't make any sense. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, some of the parts I want to talk about, yes, God, just even hearing you explain this guy say 15 years and never, and then, like the Kool-Aid, it was just so dumb. And it makes me confused. Like, how is this writer, like, writing the same, how do you write this in this movie when you're trying to be so smart? Like, that is just so generically bad, and like everyone in the theater laughed out loud at that part. So I don't know, maybe he was aiming for a laugh, and everyone in the theater laughed out loud when she was kicked off the water tower and it cut to a slow-mo shot of the alien, or I mean the alien, the mutant. And then and then it cut to like this is some of the loudest laughter I've ever heard in my life. So it was like laughter of her falling down the water tower. More extreme laughter with the alien. I keep calling her an alien. The mutant lady falling down, and then the loud, like people crying, laughing. The visual of the mutant, cradling her with her head exploded, busted out. There's like a huge pool of blood. Is the other thing that makes no sense with her surviving.
I forgot about that.
At least maybe I'm remembering wrong, but I remember a huge pool of blood by her head. And everyone was crying, laughing to the point to where I couldn't even hear. People just kept laughing all the way to Justin Long coming down. And then the other dumb part of this is like Justin Long has this whole like, come to God, come to faith, like I'm a man now and I'm gonna repent from my sins and maybe I fucked up and am I an evil person? I don't know. And it's just like,
that was stupid.
What? And I was like, all right, maybe the writer's gonna have him sacrifice himself. I'm like, all right. But then he does this other thing, and then like I get it because he's this much of a piece of shit and like he wants to repent now that he's safe, but then in danger, maybe he's not. But then the other element, I don't know if you felt this, but when he was like saying, I'm gonna have to sacrifice you, I thought he was gonna push her down the stairs where that mutant lady was running up, and that would have stopped her. And then, but then I was like subconsciously, or I guess consciously in my mind, like, well, then what is he gonna do? But then then it immediately cuts to her throwing her off the water tower thing. And again, that just makes no sense. I want to see a video. I want to see someone do this because this is like such a common movie trope that I just want to see in reality. Because like when you're falling from a great height, I mean, you have like 4 seconds? Like there's no way, even if you were to fall with someone else, there's no way you could have the speed to spin them around and then land on your back. So I would love to see maybe, those big like parachute kind of like bed things that catch people when they fall. Like if someone could do a YouTube reenactment of falling scenes in movies with 2 stunt people, like please do that so I can see what this actually looks like, because it's just so dumb in movies. It looks so dumb. Like I've never seen it look good ever. Then Justin Long comes to her and says this whole like, I had to do it and you fell, or actually, it was wet and I wasn't gonna throw you off, and then like whatever bullshit excuses. And then yeah, the monster alien, and I thought she was gonna grab the gun to shoot him, and that's what I thought was gonna happen. But instead, the alien squishes his head and pops it open or whatever, and then we get the whole like it's saying "mama" and it's like sympathetic evil character now, and then she shoots it, and then I'm like, what is the point of this whole movie? Because
Yeah.
I was waiting for this theme to the very end, and I guess no one has thought about this or brought this up, but like, okay, so we have the toxic male thing, and then we have this mutant woman, and I'm like, okay, so what is it? I don't think this movie's saying anything about anything, but like just in my brain, I'm like, okay, you have this, the only evil thing in the movie that is like a monster. I mean, Justin Long is evil and a monster, but the like actual metaphorical monster is a woman nursing. I mean, they almost essentially turn motherhood into a horror element. They essentially turn in breastfeeding and nursing, like, and like caring, and like, I don't know. It's just weird because this,
what does it mean?
Yeah, like, what are you trying? And I'm surprised no one is like, I'm not trying to say like people should be offended, but like people are offended for lesser things and lesser movies with lesser meanings, and then for this one it's like gung-ho, everything's awesome, and I'm like, well, I don't know, this feels kind of weird, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it also made me, oh my god, speaking of more movies that do things better, even Men honestly does like the meta better with the monster. Like, if I know people hate on that movie, but like that's another thing where I'm like, people hated on that movie but they really love this movie. Doesn't make any sense.
This is nothing. And yeah, the visual is directly tied with the metaphor. So if we're saying the metaphor is what, evil woman, like womanhood is evil or parenthood is disgusting, or because that's what it's showing this as. And then I don't know, and then like the only female character kills the only other female character. Again, I don't know. I don't know. It just boggles my mind.
I can't. It doesn't make any like, I'm trying to think, like, does it have something to do with the Reagan era politics or something that she comes from, or the serial killer comes from? Like, is it something? What does it have to do with like the nanny state, or like, I'm trying to think of all these deep metaphors, but none of them make any sense. Like, yeah, I would love to see someone figure it out or like come up with some complex, but it would probably be all made up, like you're saying, be like Room 237 stuff. It would all be just made up.
Yeah, watch that. That's going to be the next article. It's like, why Barbarian is actually a feminist film. And then I'll be like, oh, what?
Yep. That probably article already exists.
I just, oh my God. But yeah, I guess that's the other thing I was confused by. Like, why kill this monster who isn't really hurting you anymore? So then that was kind of confusing. That was like the final shot. And then, yeah, like,
well,
I guess
if she tried to run away, I guess it would kill her, or it would hurt her.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that's Barbarian. My brain is dead.
I'll give it like a last minute compliment, which is that it was really smart in how it did the credits, where it showed a couple of credits, then showed part of the scene of something happening, showed a couple credits, showed the scene. I know other movies, it's not like revolutionary or anything, but I'm like, more movies would be really smart if they wanted people to watch the credits to just do that. Like, all movies should just do that if they want people to watch the credits, because I never stay for like after credit scenes, but like it made me stop leaving and made me think like, oh, is there going to be like something else happening? But then it's nothing. It's just, it doesn't reward you for it. It's just her walking away, unless there's something at the very end that I missed. But
no, there isn't. I looked it up. But yeah, I agree. I like that. I like that a lot. I think I like the intercutting, and I also I think we should start, we have intro credits. I've talked about my love for that. I would love outro credits, whether in this format where it's cutting in between with a cool soundtrack or score piece, or just laying credits on top of the screen. Like almost like covering the screen. I think that would be really cool. And then like this is kind of like a little mini epilogue. Because what I was starting to think of, like as it started happening, I was like, okay, she's going to be walking and then she's going to see another lady monster. Because my thought was, this guy obviously inbred dozens and dozens of women. I thought, and then like, when we get deep into the tunnel to his room, it seemingly, I was thinking, okay, like what if this guy built all these tunnels to kidnap women, and he would crawl up to their house and kidnap them or something. And I thought that was going to be an element. And then it would have kind of tied in, this whole neighborhood is destroyed because this toxic guy has been, stealing people and like killing them and whatever and raping them. And then there'd just be like tons of these mutant incestual women
roaming around Detroit.
It just,
Oh man.
the other thing that's confusing is like, I guess why make it a woman that is the evil thing? Like, I guess the sympathy thing that it comes around to, but like, I don't know.
Couldn't he
I
have had
think
a
it would have been,
son? Yeah, like
yeah, it would have
a
been interesting to
grandson.
have a male creature, or maybe having a male creature that is, I don't know. You probably are more fluent in this, but like, has there ever been a movie? Oh my God, this is like the typical Godzilla kind of dynamic, right? Like you have an evil thing, and then you think it's evil, and then halfway through the movie, a more evil thing shows up, and you're like, oh no, this thing is just misunderstood, and it's not evil. That would have been super cool, and that would have, strengthened this woman character, and had it not be like this weird, confusing, like, what are you saying about this woman character? Is like have maybe like halfway through the movie when they escape, there's a male creature, and then you realize the woman creature is keeping people not to enslave them but to
Ah.
actually protect them because there's a male version out there killing
Oh
people.
my god. Yep.
And that would have been so cool. And then you could have just had like a huge, scary, flaccid wiener flopping around.
Yeah.
Because they make her huge breasts
Yeah.
like a horror element in this. So I think that
Uh-huh.
would have been a cool contrast. And then you could have had them fight to the death, and it would have been. And there you go.
Yeah, and you could have made it creepy but also funny. Obviously, it would come across as funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have just kept that the funny, like
Yeah, like leaned
honestly,
into it.
yeah, and make the serial killer guy pathetic or fun in a funny way. I don't know, and that
Yeah.
would have tied it all together. Yeah, I like that alternate
Yeah.
ending.
Yeah, I would have
Oh
just
man.
cut the old dad stuff out, and maybe Justin Long discovers or accidentally unlocks the male creature. Like maybe the woman creature
Ooh.
had successfully trapped him in that extra room or something, and then Justin
Mm-hmm.
Long accidentally unlocks it, gets killed by it, and then it escapes, and then we're like, oh fuck. And then yeah, that would have been the cool element, and that would have represented the father,
Yeah.
because she seemingly
This
doesn't want to.
movie, it
Yeah.
just needed more lore. Like it just needed more details for it to be satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even just
Yeah.
one other creature would have been nice.
Yeah, because it's very sparse in kills. It's surprisingly, like, extremely sparse. And yeah, the violence. I don't know. I guess it's just the surprise that everyone is loving, which I don't get. Like, I don't think just because something's surprising means that it's, like a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, but maybe I'm just, I don't know, a critic.
I think it's mainly the like Rotten Tomatoes makes sense because well, I mean just because it's either positive or negative, but
Yeah.
the letterbox reviews when you read the actual reviews, you're like, oh my god, people are going
Yeah, just
insane
like,
for this movie.
well, I think that's all I had, unless you had any other parts.
We didn't one
Oh,
scene that we didn't talk about was the cop scene, and that's my favorite scene in the movie, to be honest. Like it's like the most
yeah.
effective horror scene, and they could have made if a smarter writer could have made an entire horror movie just based on the concept, like that concept of just that people don't care, and like that's
Yeah.
scary. Like there are too many people, or there's too much crime, there's too many things going on, and people don't care. Like the rental
Yeah.
company, it kind of hinted at with them not even cleaning the house because nobody's coming there, or them just not paying attention to the rental. Like the actor owning this house and renting it out, but he doesn't even know about it or care about it. And then
Yeah.
obviously the cop scene, just how well that was done to where it was really believable, but also like I empathized with the cops and I empathized with the girl because I was like,
Yeah.
from the cops' perspective, yeah, they run into homeless people with mental illnesses and drug problems every single day.
Yeah.
They run into multiple people like this girl, and they're just crazy people. And it's one of those things where like a few crazy people like ruin everything for everyone. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It brings me into that whole concept, like the horror of society, where because there's a few crazy people, it makes everyone more jaded and cynical and suspicious of strangers,
Yep.
and it ruins it for people who are just innocent and are actually having an emergency. Or so it just God, it brought up so much stuff to where I was like, God, this could have been such a cool theme
Yep.
to center the
I
whole movie around. So
Yep. I am so glad you brought that up because I totally forgot. But yeah, that was an amazing scene. I actually listened to a podcast, shout out to Film Junk podcast, but they had a Canadian podcast. Canadian police officer was on their episode while they reviewed this, and one of the hosts brought this up to him, like was kind of like asking him like, what would you do in this situation? And the cop was like, he did literally what I would do and what I do every day. Because yeah, like just what you said, like you are trained, and it's, what is it, the apathy. This happens in every field, and it just sucks that it happens happens in fields where you have to deal with humans, specifically in policing, specifically in the medical industry. Like,
Yeah.
I felt it being a medic. Like, someone would be like, I'm having a heart attack. And then I would check their heart rate and like, no, you're not. But maybe something else is going on. But it's like that apathy of seeing the same event and not, you can't really believe people because you've had people who come in and maybe they're coked out in a hospital and that's what's going on. And then it's more frustrating than anything. And then, there's just so many elements that you have to be very calm and you almost have to be disbelieving. Like, you almost have to, it's almost like the legal, like, nothing is true until I see evidence is kind of like how you have to perform in these kind of jobs, specifically with cops. Like, there's so many things they have to think about subconsciously. And I think the scene really pulled it off. Even like one scene or one moment where they asked this cop, like, like, he was kind of a dick when he yelled at her to like put her hands off the car, right? And he's like, no.
No,
He's like, you never touch a cop's
sense.
car. You never touch a cop. Like, that is like drilled into our head. Like, never let anyone touch you because that is like setting your bubble. Like, you have a bubble and no one is allowed onto the bubble. It doesn't matter what the fuck it is or for what reason. Even if they're like a child, you have to be aggressive and tell them, get your hands off my vehicle, back away from the vehicle.
Yeah.
And like, you have to do that every time, because the one time you don't do it, suddenly they have your gun, they have your taser, they have your baton, they have your car keys. It could be anything.
Yeah.
So he was noting that. And then, he was noting like, and then you arrive to the scene with the house and this person's not in the house and they don't have the keys to the house. Like, where's the evidence? And it's like, when you lack the amount of credibility for anything to actually happen. And like you were saying, and like this cop said as well, like, and when you're a cop, you get into so many bad situations, you start, disbelieving unless there's credible evidence, and there was none at that moment. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's very interesting, and it's like sad, but then it's also the reality, and it's complicated, and it's all gray.
That's
and then
horror.
like,
yeah. It's like that's what
and,
makes it good horror, in my opinion.
And then I love how, I don't know if the director meant this, but then there's like an added racial element because she's black and she's in this neighborhood, and she looks homeless and she looks like a drug addict just by the appearance, but she's been kidnapped and held hostage.
Yeah.
So it's just like so many factors. And I wish, and that's like, I wish the movie would have dug into that, showed more of that. I don't know, done more, but at least that was a very well executed scene, in my opinion, which is like very difficult. I think nowadays, like, so many films try to show police interactions and scenes, and I don't know. I think a lot of people, go way too far on one side or way too far on the other side, and it's like this gray center feels absolutely real, and I think it's very hard to do it like this.
The only thing I wonder if this cop mentioned this, like, if she had calmly, let's say she had calmed down and asked very calmly if they could take her to the hospital, just like drop her off. Do you think they would have done it? Because that was the only thing I was like, if she'd have done that, probably they would have taken her to the hospital or something if she'd asked. I don't know.
No,
so
the cop actually offered it, and that's what the other cop in this other podcast said. Like, I would immediately offer, do you want to sleep this off? And usually you say that.
No, they offered to take her to jail or something, right?
Yeah, but it's to sleep it off. Like, there's the procedure. Like, if you see someone intoxicated, obviously she might be charged with like a DUI if she had anything in her system. But like, it's like that overnight stay because you suspect they're under the influence of any kind of drug or whatever. Or being like a nuisance. So I would have took that up. But then also, I think they probably would have took her to the hospital too. If she, like, and that's the part of the like narrative for that character. I'm like, why wouldn't you just go to the hospital and then come back later with, other people or actual cops when you're cleaned up or, like, I don't know. I just don't believe she would be that gung ho about saving this guy to that point.
Well, that pretty much covers everything I think I want to.
Shit, there's one last question.
Oh yeah.
Is this Cineverm canon?
Nope. Not in a million years. Not even for a category that I can think of, honestly.
I guess maybe it would be Barbarian canon?
Oh yeah, specifically. Yep. That's it. It's going in the Barbarian canon.
Well, yes. Okay, so thank you so much for listening to this episode of Cineverm. We would be grateful and humbled if you could leave us a review or rating with your thoughts or comments on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And if you could share us with your friends or family or incestual beasts, as that helps us in our journey to spread the love of cinema. And we will see you next week.
See ya.
Cinema.